So obviously guest count is one of the things that really drives it. Or anything else you guys want to highlight besides guest count?
Well, I think your taste level also drives it a lot. So, if you're okay with having like a backyard casual, wedding that's, kind of like paper plates and things like that, then that's going to drive your budget versus wanting to have like a over the top, black tie event at the, the nicest venue in town. Like, don't you think?
Right.
Yeah. So that taste level.
Yeah,
is another big
absolutely.
piece.
I think, yes. And and then it all goes back to your taste level, but your venue choice, your even your food choice. Do you want a seated plated dinner, or do you want a station style dinner? There's a misconception that a station style dinner is going to be less expensive, when in reality there's no control over food costs, so the caterers actually charge more for it. And there's a lot of little things like that, but I think yes, it ultimately comes down to, are you trying to do a champagne wedding on a Pabst Blue Ribbon budget, or do you have the champagne money?
Yep.
Or, is your guest count so high that, you're outpacing your money?
Yeah, I think that's great.
And I'm sounding like a bad guy a lot. So, oftentimes
no, you can have everything you want.
Do work out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. We can make them work out. It's a conversation for the beginning.
Yeah, I think if you have all those conversations in the beginning, then you can make it work throughout the planning process. But you just got to know what you're getting yourself into, so that it's not, because it is sticker shock. You most likely haven't dealt with a budget for a wedding.
There's no context.
There's no
to
context.
Right.
Yeah, you got to know what things cost, which is hard. So I mean, yeah.
Right.
So what should, this is going to be a hard question to answer. So I'm curious what you all say.
Right.
So what should couples expect to spend on their wedding?
Well, so I saw that in the pre-show notes, and I was like, I can't answer that. I'm not answering that for you. Because, I was like, pass. Because honestly, your budget is, I don't know. In first grade, they told me that a paragraph is as long as a string. And that has always stuck with me, because your wedding budget is as long as a string. Like, you get to decide. You get to decide if you want to spend, $13 at the county courthouse to get a marriage license and then go get married. We just went to Savannah for a planning weekend, and we saw a couple literally walk into Forsyth Park with a officiant of some sort, get married, just the two of them and the officiant, and I think they had a witness, and then leave. And that was their wedding. Yeah. We were like, okay,
Yep.
You can do it. So you can decide, you want to do that, or do you want to have 300 of your closest friends at the St. Regis in Atlanta with a $60,000 food and beverage minimum, and then you sure as heck want to put some decor in there because you are at the St. Regis. So,
yes.
It's beautiful by itself, but you still want to look like you belong at the St. Regis.
Yes.
I love that answer, because I think a common thing that couples get hung up on is averages, right? And it's kind of a trap question, but when you see like the wedding report puts out, that about the average wedding is like around 30,000 or so a year, or 30,000 for the wedding. But what they're not saying is that, again, about 40% of those are courthouse or going into a park and things like that. So that's really baked in there too. So it's an average is
skewed.
Exactly. Yeah. So
averages are hard.
I love that answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add there, Samie?
No, I think that's great. And also keeping in mind that you kind of touched on it already, but the cost you're looking at is really cost per guest. So that guest count is really increasing that cost a lot. So I think that's great.
Well, and I think that's actually a really great way of putting it. And there's very few people that have really done that math recently. And it's very hard to tell your clients that, hi, so you should expect to spend $500 per guest, and they look at you like you've just told them they're insane. But then at the same time, or they look at you like you have 6 heads. But then at the same time, if you divide that guest count by the round number budget that they gave you, then you're like, we said the same thing.
Yep.
We did. But you just didn't like the way I said it,
We said the same thing for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece of it. And it does make you sound a little jaded in the sense I'm always like, well, if you can cut a few people, and it's like, that is hard. These are your people. But when you're looking at $500 a head, you're you start wondering like, how much are you, my people? Who are you gonna make that list?
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's a fair question. We talk a lot about, if you haven't talked to this person in the last year, they don't need to be on your guest list. I don't care if you are the best of Facebook liking buddies. Like, if they like every single one of your pictures and you like every single one of theirs, but you haven't physically talked to the person, picked up the phone, or seen their face in a year, they don't need to come to your wedding.
They don't. Yeah. Make it.
And again, I'm the bad guy.
I know. So what do you think that couples, and I know it's so priority driven, but what do you think couples can expect to spend the most on overall for their wedding?
I always say food and beverage.
Yeah.
And food and beverage followed closely with flowers and decor.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
And it's again your drivers, but also those are the major factors, right? And it may be different in a smaller budget arena. I typically deal with $100,000 to $250,000, depending on where in my career. But yeah, I mean, in that world, you're spending a lot on your photographers and on your invitations and on all of the other things, but still the vast majority of the budget gets allocated for your food and beverage.
Yeah.
And then closely followed by flowers and draping and couches and chairs and stage surrounds and dance floors and I love it. It is so much fun. But yeah.
It comes with a price tag, yeah.
And a lot of people think that the decor does get driven by your guest count because you're talking about decorating tables, but there's still in this luxury world, there's also still this like minimum cost, right? Because my clients are all going to want some sort of stage surround. They're not going to want the black skirting on the stage. So you're paying for that regardless of if you have 20 guests or 100 guests, and it's going to cost the same amount regardless of if you have 20 guests or 100 guests. And so there's a piece of decor that doesn't get driven by your guest count, but whereas catering is all driven by your guest count.